Je suis Pierre Lefebvre. Issu d'une famille de guides et chasseurs, ma façon de voir la faune se résume en 3 mots. Intensité, passion et connexion avec la nature. À chaque fois, je vais aller au bout de moi-même et me pousser à la limite comme si ma vie en dépendait. Bienvenue dans mon monde, bienvenue dans Long Range Hunter. In the last episode, we learned more about bear hunting techniques with my good friend Ken Taylor. Now we're gonna learn about the men in this village of Waskaganish.
So my life can basically be described in 2 words, the bush and training or strength stuff. You play the cards you're dealt in life, and that's what I was introduced to at a very young age. My dad, before I was born, was a bush pilot, and after that he was a master mechanic for mine equipment. He worked for a contractor, and the mining world in those days was Northern Ontario, Northern Quebec. So when they discover an ore body somewhere, we would often, our family would move there, and we would be in the middle of the wilderness because that's where they'd find mines, especially in the 50s. So we lived in little houses or shacks, often a trailer, and sometimes no electricity and no plumbing. And I remember my mother hauling water on her back, and she told me I was very young. She dressed me up, put me outside, and the forest was my playground. So she said sometimes she was worried at first, but I always came back. And then after about a year or so, the contract would be over. And we lived in different places, like I say, Elliott Lake, before Elliott Lake, Manitowoc at the very beginning, and Rouyn-Noranda would be where that was kind of the home base. The 2 sets of grandparents lived there, so between jobs, we'd go back to Rouyn-Noranda, live there for a while, and next thing you know, we're back in the bush somewhere else. So then, the last place we lived for a couple of years was in northern Quebec and Matagami, but it wasn't really Matagami. It was 16 miles, back then everything was measured in miles, 16 miles from town across a river with no bridge. And then by the time we moved to Rouyn-Noranda steady, I was about 10 years old. So I didn't know how to skate, didn't know how to play baseball or anything like that, but I knew how to set rabbit snares and fishing lines and everything else. So I came back in the Abitibi, and so I just continued doing what I was used to doing. I was always strong for my age. From grade 1, people noticed that I was stronger than everybody else in the class. So when you're good at something, you naturally gravitate towards that. I did a lot of wrestling and stuff like that. And then one day, I was about 15 years old, I guess, and came to school. The guys were arm wrestling, and they said, "Ken, come and try this." I said, "Oh, I'm no good at that." But I never had done it. So they had me try it, and I beat everybody, and then they had me go in a pool with the teachers, and I beat them all but one. We were about equal, and I was only about 15 years old. So then a little later, I heard there was a competition, and I went there, and I got beat first match because I didn't realize it was so fast. So I guess in the early years, there was no world's strongest man competition, this and that, and strongman stuff so much. By the time there was, it was far away. I was young, and I didn't have the money to travel, so I had to do competitions that were close as possible. So officially, I was actually the first Quebecer in modern times to win a world championship title. And in those days, it was more Canada and the United States. For instance, the year I won my title, it was an American that won the lightweights. There was just 3 weight classes, and it was an American that won the middleweights, and I won the heavyweights. So other countries didn't get involved so much, and when they did, they weren't as advanced in arm wrestling as the Americans and the Canadians. So I went on to become an international referee, and I refereed many, many international and world championships all over the place. Sometimes people wonder why I live in a fairly isolated community that's only had a road for the last 21, 22 years. And obviously, this is where my wife is from. And her family and relatives and friends that are now my family, relatives, and friends live here. And there's no other place in the world now because of non-natives growing up in different towns and then moving. The friends I went to school with, many of them have passed away, many of them are sick, they're spread across Canada everywhere. My Cree family, friends, relatives, they're still mostly here, except for those that passed away. So there's no other place in Canada where I have more history now than Waskaganish, which used to be called Rupert's House. And I first came here in, I guess it was 1970 or 71. And we got married in 72. So I've seen the, when I first came here, there was no electricity, no plumbing, no vehicles, and there was no road, obviously. So, and we always wanted to live here, but because of my profession, I needed a place with a road. So when we knew there was a road coming, then we moved here about a year before. And we had 2 places for about a year. But I like living here because it's more down to earth, more closer to nature, closer to the values that I grew up in. The words like tradition, honor, and respect still exist here. Whereas often I feel it's lacking in other places down south, bigger cities and that. I like telling people that I'm low-tech, not high-tech. Of course, I have a computer, but I don't own a cell phone. And, of course, I use a depth finder so I don't hit a rock and break the motor and do $3,000 damage like I did a couple of years or a few years ago. But I always tell people that about one of the only advantages of growing older, is you have less time to put up with all these, what I find are ridiculous changes in today's society. So here I'm sheltered from that a little more.
Hi, Ethel Taylor ni waja ut Waskaganish. Egun jishkat Aboriginal de mseyu de jitasudo EU de danakash matsi dog bejukskud magiat iji our elders. Ekmak de bejujeriat je mokshek yumijam ka naptayat USC.
Thank you very much.
For his last day here, I welcome Pierre into my house to discuss further about my passion for hunting and the tools I use and my life here with my wife in Waskaganish.
So hunting to me is not a competition. Hunting, fishing, trapping, the outdoors in general, there's so many things to do. And I've tried pretty well a little bit of everything that has to do with the outdoors. And it's not a competition, it's just my life. I have nothing to prove. And I collected a few souvenirs, few little samples of my life as I went along. And I'm not a braggart, but it's just I like surrounding myself with mementos of my life as I'm doing my work or paperwork or writing, or so it's just gives me a comfort. I'm comforted by being surrounded by things that remind me of the past, of friends I've lost, and of different adventures that I've had. So some people ask me why I'm in Waskaganish. Well, there's a lot of advantages. Number one is fresh air, no pollution usually. Right now we're bothered by forest fires, but that's extremely rare occurrence. And I like the wide open spaces. I like that this is a hunting society. Hunting here is normal. A gun is a tool. A bow and arrow is a tool. So it's normal. No anti-fur, anti-trapping, anti-hunting, anti-gun people around here. I'm normal. So I always tell people I like hunting places or being in the bush in places. If you die, they might not even find your bones, which happened to a lot of my friends. I seem to be known more as a bear hunter, but most likely because there's always been moose hunting experts and deer hunting experts. Caribou hunting experts, not so much, because they think you don't need a guide to hunt caribou, but if they came to hunt with us in the old days when I was guiding caribou, then they'd realize that, yeah, we serve a purpose too. So as far as guiding goes, I did guide deer hunters, but and I hunted deer quite a bit, but I would have to travel. So deer, white-tailed deer and mule deer are exotics for me, even though I hunted white-tailed deer much more than I hunted mule deer. But that was an exotic because I had to travel for that, seeing I'm in the north. So the three main animals here were moose, black bear, and caribou. And moose, well, my dad brought me out with him. I was 8 years old, and I was hauling his old 303 around, which was passed on to me. I was 12 years old, and I think I shot my first moose. I was 14 or 15, and we always hunted moose because moose was the staple for our meat. And then I was married pretty young. My wife and I have been together. I was 18, she was 16. So obviously moose was very important, moose meat for us. So I'd always try to get a moose for us for our winter meat. And she was raised on wild meat, so it was normal. And I started hunting bears just not too long after they removed the bounties on bears in the province of Quebec. And you didn't need a license, or I think they did put a license, but the season was very long. And you could use a moose license too to shoot your bear in the fall. There was no limit. It was spring or fall, no limit, no registration, nothing. So I really accumulated a lot of bears, and then I trapped bears too. Give you an idea of a normal season for me for about, depending, it was 25 years, but the biggest years were when I did whitetail too. So what would happen is I would leave. In those days, bear hunting opened on May 1st, so that was the first season of the year. We would leave at the end of April, open up bear camps, and then the guys would leave on the 5th of July because they were allowed to hunt up to the 4th. And then we would close up everything and pack up and get home first week of July. And then sometimes I'd have to get ready and leave at the end of July to go up at the caribou camp with absolutely no communication in the earlier years with my family. Up until the end of September, I would come home, go in the bush right away, try to get a moose, come out of there, and then leave to go and I did guide in Saskatchewan, and I guided other places for whitetails, but not as long. And then hurry home though, and try to make it home for my wife's birthday on December 10th.
Une des composantes importantes dans le tir de précision, en tout cas comme moi je me sers et beaucoup d'autres tireurs se servent aussi, c'est un frein à bouche. Donc il y a différents types de freins à bouche. Il y en a qui avec une sortie de feu dans le côté. Il y en a avec des trous comme celui-ci. Ça sert à deux choses pour ma part. Okay? Ça sert à évidemment enlever du recul. Pourquoi? Parce que quand la balle est éjectée, le feu sort par en avant. Donc tout le recul vient absorbé par la crosse, l'épaule et tout ça. Quand on a des trous dans le côté, bien à ce moment-là, le feu sort par le côté, donc ça donne moins de recul sur l'épaule comme tel. Alors, évidemment, c'est plus confortable quand on fait du tir, qu'on en fait plusieurs tirs. Bien, à ce moment-là, si on a un calibre magnum, bien, à ce moment-là, bien, ça fait moins mal à l'épaule. On parle de souvent 50 à 60 % de moins de recul grâce au frein à la bouche. Puis ceux qui n'en ont pas dans leurs armes, là, bien, c'est assez facile à faire. Vous allez voir dans l'armurier, puis il va vous arranger ça. Donc, c'est faux au bout comme ça, c'est fileté. Donc, et puis, on a juste à visser le frein à bouche comme tel. L'autre chose aussi, à quoi ça sert, c'est que quand on fait un tir, que ce soit sur un animal ou un tir sur un target, on veut rester dans ton télescope. Alors, évidemment, si on a un gros recul et que ça nous empêche de rester dans le télescope, à ce moment-là, on voit moins la trajectoire de la balle, on voit moins ce qui se passe en avant. Alors moi, j'aime ça rester dans mon télescope le plus possible, puis pas me lever, puis être complètement défocusé. Alors, frein à bouche, un élément essentiel et important pour moi. Et puis, je m'en sers dans n'importe quel calibre. Là. C'est pas parce qu'on est plus petit calibre ou quoi que ce soit. On s'en sert dans n'importe quel calibre. Et puis, moi, c'est toujours essentiel. Ça fait partie d'un arme. Évidemment, tout ça, ces éléments-là, ça sert à une chose. C'est pour blesser les animaux, faire un tir précis.
What I've been hunting with for many, many years, the tool I use for hunting, and that's traditional bows, just regular traditional bows. And I started off when I was very, very young. I used to make bows out of sticks and tree limbs and make arrows out of straight limbs or else even cattails and bulrushes. And so I started shooting a bow very, very young. And then when I was about 12 years old, I got my first real bow. And that was one of those fiberglass, green, traditional or clear glass, fiberglass bows kids use. And with that, I used to hunt small game and everything. And then when I was about 15, I got a recurve for my birthday. And then I hunted with a recurve for many years, but small game, because in those years you were not allowed to hunt big game with a bow in Quebec. So then I hunted big game with a rifle, and like my father and everybody else. And then later on I transitioned back, and I didn't know they still made traditional bows, and the first round wheel compound bows came out. So I tried those, and I hunted with them for a few years, and then I realized that I could still have access to old traditional bows. So I went back to traditional bows, because even when I was shooting my compound bow, I shot a fairly long, a 48-inch long compound bow with wheels and knot cams, with no overdraw and no release and no peep sight and no kisser. And I had sights, and sometimes I wouldn't use them. So then I went back to my traditional bows. And so all I probably have about, at least 40 years, if not more, of traditional bow hunting only. Bow hunting is a fairly, especially traditional bow hunting, it's quite a commitment. And one of the reasons I like hunting with a bow, and why I've hunted with a bow for so many years, is that the harder something is to accomplish, the more you have to learn in order to accomplish your goal. And I'm a selective hunter in the sense that I'll decide what we're going to eat, depending on the availability of game too. And it's but the more time you spend trying to harvest an animal, the more you have to learn about that animal. And so at one point, from the years of guiding and everything else, it reached a point that going out and hunting with a rifle didn't give me the satisfaction of spending more time in the bush with the animals that I was hunting. I was a very efficient hunter, so hunting with a bow leveled the playing field and helped me learn more about nature, because I love the animals I hunt, and I love nature, and I'm a conservationist. And so that brought me to the point where I'm still hunting with the traditional bow. It was nice having you all. I hope you enjoy your visit and a glimpse into a portion of my life. Let's just hope that in this high-tech world, modern society, that my way of life can live on.